As global oil prices continue to slide, what is the future viability of American shale oil and gas? That's a question we'll be exploring in detail in the next half hour, right alongside all the key business news stories that will be opening up your week as far as the news landscape in Africa is concerned. So far, welcome to Global Business. Here's what's coming up. Egypt looks to enact a new investment law that should cut quite a bit of red tape. And financial institutions in West Africa sign a deal to pump some capital into the mortgage industry. Now, let's start tonight with a look at oil prices. Brent and WTI crude futures extended their slide today after Goldman Sachs slashed its price forecast, while on the other hand, demand for crude in the United States dipped in the wake of fires over the weekend that affected refineries in Ohio and Pennsylvania. Now, both Brent and US crude are at their lowest level since April 2009, thanks in part to a supply glut and weak demand from large consumer nations. Analysts at Goldman Sachs lowered their three-month price forecast for Brent to $42 a barrel from $80. They also set their forecast for American crude at $41 a barrel, down from $70, arguing that oil futures are likely to stay somewhere in the $40 a barrel range in the first half of 2015. Now, some economists will argue that lower oil prices can give a boost, a jolt if you will, to the US economy, especially on the consumer side. The thing is, though, those exact same low prices are now threatening the exact same industry that helped the US overcome its dependency on foreign energy, as Andrea Arenas reports.
Around the United States, people are enjoying a dramatic drop in the cost of fuel. The average cost of a gallon at the pump is about $2.17. Oil prices have fallen by more than half since last June, when a barrel cost about $110. OPEC, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, says it will not cut oil production, even if that means prices continue to drop. Some observers argue OPEC's strategy is to squeeze the U.S. out of the market with an oversupply of oil.
They're hurting themselves now, taking lower oil prices than they've seen since the mid-2000s, and in exchange what they're trying to do is ensure that the prices will stay higher in the long run. So US shale oil has become an increasing competitor to OPEC, and they're hoping that if they can keep the price low for a few years, they can drive a lot of these producers out of business.
In the meantime, fracking is changing the industry. The process involves extracting oil and gas from underground deposits. Oil production from fracking has increased from 5.6 million barrels a day in 2010 to 9.3 million. At a recent conference in Washington, D.C., energy officials said the future of the industry is promising.
The fundamentals are we will be number one in oil production in the world. During this new era, our nation has not only set production and refining records, which have created 600,000 new jobs, but has also added significantly to the global energy supply, which has led to reduced prices now benefiting all consumers.
But fracking is expensive. Companies say they need prices between $60 and $100 per barrel of oil to break even. As world prices continue to drop, the fracking sector begins to face uncertainty as the industry might prove to be unsustainable, putting many here in the U.S. out of a job. Andrea Arenas, CCTV, Washington.
Now then, let's explore the outlook for American shale oil and gas with Daniel Rentis, is live in Washington, D.C. right now. Daniel, let's start with a million-dollar question. At what price point does most of U.S. shale production become essentially unprofitable?
Well, I've looked at the numbers and I suggest probably in the region of 60 or maybe $70, $75 a barrel. So at the moment, the profitability is very low. But there are lots of factors that go into the equations which you make in order to consider not just what they are doing at the moment, but when to start drilling again. So in the case of shale, the big question is over the length of time that it takes to drill shale. And then that's about 6 months. But when you've drilled a well, you've spent most of your money then, you get about 2 years worth of drilling out of it. So it's also about the timing. So if you've already drilled a well, you might as well just continue to pump it out. But if you are looking at whether to drill a well, then you look at those numbers.
Indeed. Let's look at this from a purely technical perspective, however, because a lot of people don't understand the difference between conventional oil drilling and shale. What's the difference in the costs of getting oil out of the ground in, say, Texas compared to getting the exact same stuff out of the ground in Saudi Arabia?
Well, it very much varies on the geography, the length of time, the distance it takes to transport the oil. It also depends on whether it's heavy or light crude, different kinds of crude, which have heavier costs in the refining process, etc., etc. But if you just look at the crude, the prices on average are not that different. The difference is the length of time in which you can exploit those drilling capacity. So in other words, when you're talking about conventional oil from places like Saudi Arabia or even conventional oil drilled here in the United States, you're talking about bigger upfront costs. But then once you've got that in place, you can maybe exploit from anywhere from 10 to 25 years. The difference here with shale is that you can only exploit those drilled areas for about 2 years. That is the major difference. That is the major factor that goes into this, this equation that we have at the moment. And that means that there's a less likelihood that in the short term, if the oil price is low, those shale producers and those people that are funding those shale producers are less likely to drill for the next 2 years going on, or however long the oil price remains low.
Indeed. Let's focus on the wider picture here. The EIA is due to release some data on US oil imports and exports on the 30th of January. What do oil traders expect to see in that report? Should we see a continued fall in US oil imports?
Well, I think that it's probably going to be that number and a number of other factors, including the factor of Chinese oil demand. Supply and demand factors are going to be watched very sensitively at the moment, given the oil price. So the oil price at the moment is particularly low, particularly on those light sweet crudes that are produced in the West Texas. So I think the expectation is that we'll continue to see supply go up and the reliance on US imports of oil to continue to go down. But that equation could change, as I say, if they start to think that they won't invest in some of these short-term shale projects.
Indeed, we'll have to leave it there for the time being. Daniel Brentius there live in Washington, D.C. Now then, let's move on to Zimbabwe. Another indigenous bank over there has gone under. Allied Bank surrendered its license to the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe last week. It's owned by a top government official, Obert Mpofu, the country's transport minister. The thing is, the writing had been on the wall for quite some time now for this troubled bank. It was facing a liquidity shortfall and it had failed to secure new investors to recapitalize it. The bank was saddled with non-performing loans, a problem faced by several banks in the Southern African country. The bulk of the debt had been accumulated during the dollarization of the economy in 2009, but Zimbabwe's recent period of slow growth has seen many borrowers completely fail to keep up with their debt service obligations. Allied Bank's failure is now threatening efforts to resuscitate Zimbabwe's banking sector, especially in the wake of a string of bank failures in the last 3 years.
If you look at Zimbabwean banks at the moment, especially the indigenous banks, there seems to be a crisis in terms of how they've been managing their toxic balance sheets. Most banks are struggling to recover the funds they had lended, especially at the onset of dollarization, and they are sitting on quite very bad loans, to the extent that sometimes the 22% non-performing loans ratio, which the central bank is officially announcing to the public, might not really be representative of the events on the ground.
Over Nigeria, the Securities and Exchange Commission has announced the exit of its Director General, Runma Otte, after she completed a 5-year term in office. On her watch, the capital market had improved listing rules, bond market reforms, as well as the introduction of exchange-traded funds. Otte became the head of the regulatory body in January 2010 as the Nigerian capital market recovered from the 2009 crisis, which had been triggered by loans given to stock speculators and fuel importers, which essentially turned sour. Now, the value of the bourse's main index reached a peak of over $72 billion in 2014, before, of course, plunging due to weak global oil prices in part. The Securities Exchange says an acting Director General will be appointed. Now then, let's make a quick run through the markets here for you. Looking at the numbers from across the board, a bit of a mixed bag. The NSE in Nigeria ending the day 0.3 higher. The JAC in South Africa losing about a 4 percentage point, and the EGX 30 still in full-on flight mode, plus 2.24 percentage points in trading today. Coming up next, we'll be in Egypt looking at a new investment law that cuts quite a bit of red tape. And finance bodies in West Africa aim to put a bit more capital into the mortgage industry. Stay on Global Business. Africa is on the move. It's home to 7 of the world's 10 fastest growing economies. We help you make sense of the fast changing African business landscape. We take you where the business is happening. Global Business, weekdays at this time on CCTV Africa.
Food security is a major challenge for most African nations, yet agriculture is a backbone of these economies. But with technologies like hydroponics, there is hope of food availability all year round.
Welcome back to the program. You're still watching Global Business Africa. Let's take it to Egypt now. Authorities over there could face opposition to a new unified investment law, which is designed to cut the country's notorious stifling bureaucracy. At least that's the argument being made by the investment minister, Ashraf Salman. He says the law is vital in efforts to restore the confidence of foreign investors who currently must secure permits from about 78 government agencies in order to set up a company and get it running in Egypt. Now, in some cases, that's a process that can take up to 5 years. The government plans to create a one-stop shop that will make life a lot easier for foreign investors like you. Egypt's economy is still recovering from a turbulent 3-year period of political unrest, which drastically cut business activity. The minister acknowledged that winning effective backing for this law from numerous government agencies could be difficult. Right, then let's head over to Cairo now for more on this proposed investment law with Dr. Hisham Ibrahim, who's a professor of economics at the Cairo University. Thank you for your time this evening. Tell us, how will this law be put into place given that Egypt currently doesn't have a parliament? And is there a risk that after parliamentary elections are held, this law may be altered by legislators?
Good evening. It's my pleasure to be here. First, there is no problem at all. We already know there is no parliament cabinet for the time being, but the legislation authority with the Mr. President Fattah al-Sisi and after the new elections will be held next March and April, we will have a new parliament. The new parliament can revise this law and this parliament can approve this law for that time. There is no problem at all. In fact, the Egyptian economy have many problems. We have no time to waste. We need more investment for the time being. We have lost many foreign investment after the revolution 2011, 25th of January. At that time, we lost for each year more than $6 billion. We have lost more than $20 billion for the last 4 years. So we need this law very currently. So it's a pleasure to have a new law for that time, and after the new parliament, I think he will approve this law.
Indeed. Enforcing contracts is one area where Egypt, according to the Doing Business rankings by the World Bank, performs relatively badly compared to the Middle East and OECD economies. Does this law make changes to cut down the amount of time lost in contract enforcement through the courts or arbitration?
Yes. In fact, this law will issue a new phase. He will apply the idea of one place for approved any new company or any new investment. This law also issued a new authority for promoting the investment in Egypt, and this very important for the time being. We need more investment. We have many problems. We have unemployment reached to 12%. We have growth rate under 2%. We have a very optimal futures, and we need this new law because we need very motivation for our economy. So this law is very important for the time being.
Indeed. Let's focus on taxes as well. Will this law cut the 29 tax payments that are due from companies to the government every year, or at least reduce the amount of time that is spent on tax compliance by businesses?
Yes, this law will reduce the time. We will reduce the time for issuing or for approved any new project or any new company. We have many obstacles facing the Egyptian or foreign investors. So I think this law, after issue and after approved from the new parliament, will encourage the will encourage the Egyptian economy, will encourage the investment to push and to create more investment to facing our Egyptian economy that face the Egyptian till now.
Indeed, we'll have to leave it there for the time being. Thank you very much for your input. That's Dr. Hisham Ibrahim, is a professor of economics at the Cairo University, who was live from the Egyptian capital. Now, in the last couple of years, Chinese railway construction firms have made inroads into Africa. You've probably seen some of those stories right here on CCTV. In August last year, the China Railway Bureau Group Corporation completed the $1.8 billion reconstruction of the Benguela rail line that links Angola to Zambia and the southeastern end of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Over in East Africa, the construction of the standard gauge rail line is now in progress in Kenya. Here's a look at how each of these projects will benefit their respective countries.
The 186-kilometer-long railroad is the first part of a bigger project that will provide modernized railways built with Chinese technology standards in this African country.
The project brought in $200 million worth of Chinese raw materials and paved the way for the completion of the whole line.
More than 5,000 workers were trained during the construction period, and 5,000 more jobs are expected in the local area after the railway starts operation.
I am happy that the railway is complete. It cuts our travel time from 3 hours to just 1 hour. This railway brings benefits to us.
Analysts from PricewaterhouseCoopers say the railway would lessen the road transportation pressure and save the government millions of dollars in maintenance fees. More than 2,000 Chinese companies are now investing in a variety of African sectors, including agriculture, mining, construction, manufacturing, and real estate. Experts say leaders from both sides have agreed to improve their cooperation in such areas as industry, finance, and cultural exchanges. They also say that such practical cooperation will be the backbone for local economic growth. 明天 CCTV.
Now, in a bid to rejuvenate the property industry in the West African region, the Economic and Monetary Union of West Africa Mortgage Refinancing Regional Bank has put about $27 million of capital at the disposal of 5 banking institutions. The idea here is to refinance mortgages in 8 countries, including Benin, Mali, and Cote d'Ivoire, among others. In What's Hot Tonight, we take a look at how this agreement might give thousands a way to get into the property market.
The West African Development Bank estimates the bulk of household income in the region is spent on paying rent on properties. This agreement will make it easier for citizens of the 8 countries who make up the Economic and Monetary Union to own their own homes. The 10-year deal was signed in Togo by 5 banks and focuses on an interest rate of 0.6% net tax in all WEMU countries. Patrick Mestralet, head of the Pan-African bank Aura Bank, says the refinancing will ease mortgage transactions in member countries.
Donc aujourd'hui, grâce à ce refinancement, nous allons pouvoir financer.
Today, thanks to this refinancing, we'll be able to address the question of ownership of housing in the 8 EMOA countries. This is indispensable because in order to buy a house, you all know that one cannot take out a loan for 15 days. A loan must be taken out for a length of 10 to 15 years, and we do not have the resources for that. The sums that are deposited in banks by individuals are short-term. They are often in savings accounts and do not surpass 3 years. We therefore are in need of resources, and without the support of the CRRH, which is a massive innovation, we as commercial banks wouldn't even be able to intervene in this area. And today, this is within the reach of all the banks.
Pilotée au départ par la BOAD, mais vraiment très importante.
The $27 million will enable more people in the Wemu region who never had access to the property market a facility to access the funds needed.
L'essentiel du revenu des ménages, en tout cas des moyens.
The bulk of household incomes is used to finance housing. It is therefore a good thing that the West African Development Bank and other institutions have put in place a structure that can help access to housing. Our focus as an investment and development bank is to find our interest, and this is where we're participatory and shareholders.
Disons notre intérêt. Et c'est pour ça que nous participons.
The Wemu Mortgage Refinancing Regional Bank has cross-bank shareholding in the region. Voldi Carosa, CCTV.
Right, and as far as commodities are concerned, the trends we have observed since the start of the year still very much in force. Oil essentially heading south. The other commodities we track heading in the opposite direction. Of interest, however, Egypt Stock Exchange. ETFs will start trading from Wednesday this week. That should certainly be interesting. The first one you should expect will be launched by Beltone Financial Holdings. It's got a value of about 10 million Egyptian pounds. Certainly something to watch, especially in 2015. Where exactly is Africa's growing middle class providing the firepower for the growth of the African retail industry? We explore that question next. Welcome back to the program. Let's take you back to North America. The International Auto Show started on Monday in Detroit. The annual two-week event is one of the most highly anticipated automotive shows in the global calendar. CCTV's Rosa Kazan has been getting close to the latest automotive ideas, products and luxury cars.
We are here at the gallery, an event that's become the official kickoff of the North American International Auto Show here in Detroit. One of the most anticipated shows of the year in the automotive world. It's a dazzling display of glitz and horsepower featuring more than 24 of the most expensive ultra-luxury, ultra-performance and exotic cars on the market. About $8 million worth of cars to be precise. There is the Aston Martin V12 Vantage S with a starting price of $185,000. The Jaguar F-Type Project 7, $165,000. And the always head-turning Rolls-Royce Wraith starting at $285,000. And right here is the most expensive model on the floor. It's the 2015 model from Porsche. It's a hybrid 918 Spider. It'll set you back $845,000, but Porsche says the price is worth it. In fact, luxury car brand sales hit record levels in 2014 with BMW, Porsche, Mercedes-Benz, Infiniti, Bentley, and Maserati, among others, all enjoying a bumper year.
I know it was a record-breaking year for Porsche. In the United States, we sold 47,007 total units, which exceeded our expectations wildly. We attribute that to just people understanding the value of having a quality automobile.
And it was an especially good year here in the United States. Overall sales of cars and trucks, including premium cars, topped 16.5 million in 2014, surpassing the 16 million mark for the first time since 2006. or since before the Great Recession. Analysts are citing an improving economy, job creation, and wage growth, and lower gasoline prices here in the United States, and they expect this momentum to continue in 2015. And organizers here say all of this means that the Detroit Auto Show and the auto industry are making a remarkable comeback.
The displays are bigger than ever. People are really starting to take branding to a whole new level. Well, a few years ago, you started to see a lot of the displays cutting back with the recession, but the show's back, the industry's back. There's an energy when you walk the show floor that we haven't seen in quite a few years.
And adding to all that buzz and optimism is Detroit's own success story. The city exited bankruptcy last month, which at $18 billion was the largest municipal bankruptcy in U.S. history. Rosa Kazan, CCTV, Detroit.
Oh, and good news for you Ford fans. The GT40 apparently is back with a 3.5-litre twin-turbo V6. That should be fun. Right, Africa's growing middle class. They're developing quite the appetite for high-end products, and entrepreneurs are now tapping into that demand. Last year, entrepreneurs here took advantage of that growing demand for retail services to sell their products and build their businesses. Maria Galang has this report.
In 2014, Nigerian Tara Durotoye was at her shop working on plans to make her mark across the continent. The entrepreneur runs a makeup enterprise that is fast expanding across Africa. House of Tara International develops a variety of makeup products designed for African skin with a price tag of between $2 to $36 US.
For us, it's the impact that we're making that is most rewarding. The jobs, the many people who are looking for jobs today, the beauty industry has given opportunity for young people who are very excited about beauty, and Nigerians are very fashionable and love beauty. We've given many people the opportunity to start up something as a business, to be business owners, to start up their own businesses and to make money from it, but also to be financially independent. And many of them have had to now employ 1 or 2 people as well. And I think that that's the biggest joy for us.
Africa's consumption patterns have changed in favor of capital goods like cars and luxury goods like makeup. Dorotoye says she wants to take advantage of this opportunity. Across the continent in Ethiopia, workers were busy processing bamboo into various products like floor tiles and toothpicks for sale at the Bamboo Star Agroforestry Company. The company was started in 2007 by Michael Gebru after he returned home from the United States, where he'd been living for 15 years.
The potential of bamboo in Ethiopia is immense. 67% of the bamboo forest exists in Ethiopia from the entire Africa. Most of the bamboo forests are existing in this region, which is in Benishangul-Gumuz regional states. And if you are able to use all this bamboo forest, turn it into modern technology, and we're able to export it, we can generate a lot of money, not only for the company, but as well as for the country.
In Uganda, a group of entrepreneurs came up with ways of creating employment for themselves by giving cars complete makeovers.
You can bring your car, then they ask you, do you have any design what you want from you? If you told me I have, then I told bring. You know, normally this design we picked from internet.
And finally, in Ethiopia again, a local organization brought together entrepreneurs and other players in shoe manufacturing, offering them training and financial aid to kick off their own businesses. The Ethiopia International Footwear Cluster Cooperative Society was created by a group of friends after realizing how difficult it can be for local entrepreneurs to market their products. Members can connect or work with other designers or leather suppliers within the same compound. The cooperative produces up to 12,500 pairs of shoes per day and has started its first local retail store in Addis Ababa. Maria Galang, CCTV.
We'll leave it there for today. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.